Well, if you're like me, you've done your research and you've looked all over the internet, some YouTube channels, and tried to find some information on this river, this reservoir I'm going to head off to. And so I'm going to just do a little video on Minersville Reservoir and talk a little bit about how to catch some fish on it. Never been to it. Have a little expectation on what to expect when I get there. But yeah, we'll see what happens. So if you're wondering what my credentials are, you know, and who am I to have any kind of authority on this kind of thing, I'm really not any authority on anything, to be honest with you. I have had a little experience though. I used to work for a little shop out in Northern California called Powell's Fly Shop. Yeah, these guys right here. Powell's is a widely recognized name in rod manufacturing. E.C. Powell started making split cane bamboo rods back in the early 1900s, and his son Walt Powell took over his trade. And I had the fortunate experience to get to know Walt as I worked at the Powell's Fly Shop. He was in the back room building his rods, and we had a lot of interesting times. We had a lot of fun stuff going on back then in the mid-80s. So hanging around these guys, I got to learn a lot. Did a lot of fishing in Northern California. Fished a lot of lakes. One of my favorite lakes was Manzanita Lake. It's right in the beginning of Lassen Volcanic Park, and they had it was catch and release water, cal trout water. And in the month of July, they had a caddis that would come off in the evening. We used to call it the motorboat caddis because it would hatch off out in the depths of the water, come to the surface, and it would just make like a motorboat in the water till it got to the banks, and it could crawl up on the reeds and dry its wings off. They were so large, they were probably a good inch, I'm going to say an inch and an eighth or an inch and a quarter in length, maybe even a little longer than that in some cases. We used to do the Goddard style caddis because they could float really well. Cast them out, shape the wings just right, and just do a little hand retrieve and bring those bugs in with a wake behind them, and the fishies just come up and just slam them. It was a lot of fun. So done a lot of lake fishing, a lot of float tubing, and we're going to go down and fish Minersville Reservoir and see if we can put some of these skills to test. Done a little bit of lake fishing this year up on Strawberry already. We've got the ice out up there in the last few weeks, and the fish have really been active. They've been feeding quite heavily. So fishing just a little bait pattern. Got a little baby rainbow fly that I got off of a guy named Jason. Drop jaw flies. Gotta give him a little credit for that. It feels like cheating. That fly's so realistic. So we're gonna take that fly and see what we can do with it down at Minersville Reservoir, and go after some of these rainbow and cutthroats. They've even got some smallmouth bass in this reservoir. So let's see what happens. So I wanted to tell you guys a story about movie magic. Walt Powell, who I talked about working with back in the mid-80s, built bamboo rods after what he learned from his father, E.C. Powell. One of my favorite shows growing up as a kid was Kurt Gowdy's Wide World of Sports. I think that was what it was called. And he used to, every Sunday I think that show would come on, and every once in a while they would do a fishing expedition. Well, Kurt Gowdy came out and did an episode with Walt Powell, and Walt was going to take him down the Klamath River for trophy steelhead. and they fished all day and didn't get a single strike. Nothing. And I mean, Walt knows how to catch fish, but he once told me that the secret to catching fish on a fly is being in the right place at the right time. And even if you know what you're doing, and if you're not in the right place at the right time, yeah, you're just not going to catch fish. And we've all had those days. And so that they could make a TV show worth watching, Walt says to Kurt, hey, check this out. So he took his, I don't know what rod he was using, I'm sure it was one of his bamboo rods he had built, and cast over to a log that was rolling down the stream. Cast over, snagged onto it, camera's rolling, sets up on this log as the log's rolling downstream, and it's peeling off line, and they turned that thing into the big monster trout that got away story. So if you guys remember that, that was one of Walt's stories that he shared with me. He came into the shop one day and renewed his fishing license, and when he gave me his old license, I said, you want this back, Walt? And he goes, no, you can toss it. Well, I didn't toss it, I stuck it in my pocket. I thought, heck, this is a Walt & Powell fishing license. Not that I knew it was going to matter or mean anything. I just thought it was kind of cool to have one of his old licenses. So I saved that, hung on to it for a long time. And a few years back, I was doing some research on a bamboo rod that my grandfather had given me. I wanted to just find out a little bit about it. Was it worth anything? Was it made by anybody that I should be aware of? And I really couldn't find much in the way of information on it, but somehow somebody out there in the world saw my question and realized that I had experience working in the shop and was around Walt & Powell, and he was a collector. And so he started talking to me about some of the things that he enjoyed doing. He was a Air Force colonel out of Texas at the time. He's retired now. I think he flies for Delta. Anyway, we got to talking, and I told him I had a Walt & Powell fishing license from the mid-'80s, and he offered to trade me a Walt & Powell 7.5 foot 3-weight bamboo rod for that piece of paper. And I just said, heck yeah, because I've always wanted one of his rods, and I've got that rod and I cherish it to this day. It's an awesome action rod. Love it. Bamboo's got a unique feel to it, and if you haven't cast a bamboo rod, you got to do it. Anyway, had some great times with Walt, and then hung around some great people. Learned a lot about fishing, and his son, Preston Powell, built rods as well, but he got into the graphite, and he had his specific mandrels for his rods stored up at the Loomis plant, and so when they would run their blanks, they would run them through that plant up there at Gary Loomis rod manufacturing plant. So that's where our rods came from. So most of my equipment that I use is over 35 years old. I've got a couple of Signature Series rods. They're kind of that old burgundy colored looking blank. And then I've got the IM6, it's kind of a dark green blank, a little faster action rod, and I've got several of those as well. So today I'm going to be fishing a 9.5 foot 6-weight. It's called the Long Reach, and it's a Powell graphite rod, and I just love that rod. And I'll be fishing a sink tip line with about a 7 or 8 foot leader. It's probably a little too long. It's just what I have on the line, and fishing a little baby rainbow pattern. So we'll see what we can do. Well, we're here. And I'm gonna drop some money off here for the fee area. And it doesn't look like there's a breath of wind on the lake. It is just flat out there. Nice. Gotta love it. All right, we'll be on the water shortly. Some buffalo midges coming off. And there's actually fish keying in on these things right below the surface. We got fish working all over the place here. They are taking those midges right on the surface. This guy's coming cruising right at me, just gulping stuff. That's just downright rude. Look at this guy right here. Just hear him. They are actively feeding, and I don't have what they want on. So let's switch it out. Well, I stuck a dry fly on, just something close in proximity to size. I put an callibaetis on. This is not what's hatching, but he took it, and man, this thing's just staying down. He won't come up. There he goes. I had my drag set a little too tight. Yeah, he's a big fish. I have no idea what it is. Yeah, I got that drag set pretty tight there. Alright, come on. Oh, it's a nice big rainbow. Oh yeah. All right, this is net worthy. Oh, that's what I'm talking about right there. Oh, just there we go. Wow, nice rainbow. Okay. Oh, geez. These guys are stocky. All right, I don't want a bath. Quit giving me a bath, dude. He's so big I can't get my hands around him. He's hard as rock, too. There we go. Nice little callibaetis out of there.
I have no idea how long this guy is. Let's get him up here on the scale. Oh, he's probably 22 inches. Big old rainbow. All right, bud. Heavy fish. Fish. And even though there's no cast coming off, a little elk hair annotated close enough. Come on, buddy. Oh, he's... All right. Damn, feisty. Yeah, that's a good one there. All right, let's get you guys in the water.